Hi, this is Nick Dawson, the editor-in-chief of Talkhouse Film, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Film podcast. It's been a big year for Wim Wenders. An Oscar nomination for his documentary Salt of the Earth, the premiere of his new 3D drama Everything Will Be Fine at the Berlin Film Festival, a retrospective of his work at the Museum of Modern Art, and now Janus Films' travelling 28-film series Wim Wenders Portraits Along the Road, which features newly restored prints of many of his movies, including the 5-hour director's cut of Until the End of the World. Since the inception of Talkhouse Film, I've been planning to do something with Wenders, but his busy schedule meant it was tricky to find the time. "Don't give up on me," he wrote to me last year, and so I didn't. When he was in New York City for the launch of Portraits Along the Road at IFC Center, everything came together finally, and he sat down for a Skype chat with the great Allison Anders, the writer-director of such movies as Grace of My Heart and Gas Food Lodging. The two of them have been friends for 30 years, and in their lively and fascinating conversation, they talk about how Wim became Allison's mentor, a possible sequel to Paris, Texas, why Wenders didn't direct True Detective, how Until the End of the World presciently anticipated everything from GPS to search engines to selfie culture, and also a lot of stuff about music, including how Wenders saved the goalie's anxiety at the penalty kick by digitally replacing an Elvis song with a copycat track, Wim buying Allison her first iPod, and a discussion of the art of the mixtape.
So, we have to get into some serious conversation, Alice.
We do. We got to do it.
How are we ever going to do this?
I have no idea. You know
what?
I
laugh always with you. That's the problem.
I know. Well, here's one thing we can start with is, I was telling Nick that as much as we connect on movies, our first big connection is music, really.
Yes, I still have your album collection. How many did you send me?
Which, by the way, when I told this to Tiffany last night, I said, I sent him not only mixtapes, I sent him records. And she was a little kind of annoyed by that. She was like, so those records are with him.
So she's going to sue her mother for having sent the most precious record to a foreign director. But she's right. I mean, some of these were great. And I think I have them as a solid little department in my record collection. So if ever she wants her mom's records back, let her get in touch with me.
I love that. I'm so glad you still have them.
Yeah, I would never throw away anything, especially not vinyl. But at the time, I didn't know what to do. I had this tiny little apartment, and you kept sending me records. I didn't have any space for it. And then you kept sending me letters. Do you remember how many letters you sent me?
I sent you a lot of letters.
A lot of letters.
And your beautiful Donata. Yeah. I know, right?
You
and
actually
you're beautiful.
Stalked me, let's face it.
It's true. I tell people that. I go,
it was all worth it.
I stalked him. Yes, it was.
It was all worth it because as soon as I saw you and the work you did on Paris, Texas with Harry Dean, I mean, it was just priceless. And I don't know if we'd probably be still shooting the movie, and Harry would still not know his dialogue if it hadn't been for you.
Well,
you just pumped it into his brain. I don't know what you did, but in the end, he could do it. That was genius.
Well, I feel bad a little bit because, he was kind of walking around saying, I felt like I interfered a little bit, but I also felt like you gave me this experience that nobody else would ever give anybody. I mean, who gives somebody that experience? I mean, I know I kind of, lied my ass off to get that grant to get on your film, but
get your friends on it too.
And to get my friends on it too. I guess I should explain that. So what I did was, I knew you were going to be making Paris, Texas, so I lied and said that you had invited me and I won this grant. And then when you came to LA to see my movie, I told you I won this grant. And you said, congratulations. And I said, yeah, it's to study under you on Paris, Texas. And you got this faraway look. and said, well, I guess you have to come. And I said, yeah, and these two guys won the same grant. So yes, so we went, and but even at that, I think I don't know that I would do that. I mean, somebody would really have to put themselves out there,
For good
like I
reasons, Julia.
did
I think you
for
did
me.
well. Yeah.
Thank you,
And I
darling.
think you guys learned a lot on that movie.
We learned so much. And Vim, I was telling someone recently how I told you after the wrap party that I was going to try and use everything that I learned from you. And I knew that I couldn't use it for a long time because I was making these little tiny Super 8 movies at school, but I thought eventually. And you said, well, I'm counting on it. And you told me that you sometimes saw me as this old woman in the future that had done all these amazing things. And you had said, now, I don't know if it's going to be with film. By the way, I put that dialogue in one of my films, too, in Grace in My Heart. But
I
you
didn't
said, I
get
don't know if
credited.
it'll... I know you didn't. I'm sorry. I'm giving you credit right now. Dialogue by Wim Wenders. So you said, I don't know if it'll be with film because I don't know how long this will last. And isn't it interesting now that we're sort of in this vague place now?
Yeah, we're in limbo now.
We're in a weird place.
We're in limbo. But you've been doing television, huh? You've been working on
I
Sex and the City and
have.
Southland, and I have not yet seen any of your work on these series. So, are you very busy with that?
Well, I have been, yes. This year, in fact, was pretty back to back. And while it's sort of like making movies, it's also not really.
Also, a little bit more frantic. See, I almost got
Yes.
involved. I almost got involved with True Detective and had to finally say no because I wasn't finished with the last movie, and I would have had to drop it in the middle of post-production, and it was a very, very hard decision because I would have loved to try some
Oh, yeah.
television, and I love the format, and some of these writers and some of these actors are fabulous, and I think we can
Yes.
do really good work there. So, and I'm used to shooting
Absolutely.
fast, so now I think I can handle it.
Absolutely. That's the thing too, is the fast doesn't faze me because that's what I've had to do anyways. And most likely what I learned from you as well on Paris, Texas, because that was not, how long was that shoot? It wasn't all that long, was it?
No, we with the actual shooting time was only 4 to 5 weeks, and actually the last week we were just a tiny little reduced company, and we had to cut all the
Right.
shooting schedule down because we were blackmailed. You remember, we were blackmailed by the Teamsters, and had to hire
Yes.
all these
Oh,
guys, and there went 2 weeks of shooting, and in the end, I think we didn't have an actual shooting time not more than 4 to 5 weeks. It was a blast.
right.
We really shot
Right.
fast. We really
Yeah,
shot
that
very
was
fast.
really crazy. And then because we were down for a little while too. So,
Yeah, because we ran out of story. We ran out of script. I was sitting with Claire Denis in this dinky hotel on Sunset Boulevard, and we tried to figure out how to continue the movie. And we sent everybody home, including you, but of course you only had to move to the valley.
that's right.
Some of the other guys
That's
actually
right.
went home in Europe, and then we called them 2 weeks later and said we now know how to continue the film. And then we called everybody.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. That's right.
See, we're sitting in the.
Well, there was also something interesting that you told me at that time because I was giving you installments of my journals and you were laughing. You were like, oh, she thinks she knows me so well. Because I thought you wouldn't read them while you were working, but you did. And so you told me, just remember that the production always reflects what the film is about. And I said
that?
something, yeah, and I said something smart ass like, "Oh, I think that this film reflects what your last film was about," because we were shut down at the time about state of things.
Yeah, it was
But
funny. We
it's
lived the whole situation of State of Things in the middle of Paris, Texas. We were stranding without film,
isn't
without
it true?
money, without script. We just couldn't continue. Isn't that
It was
funny? It
so
was like a
strange.
premonition I had with State of Things.
It really was. It really was. But I also have found that that is true. That
Yeah.
the production reflects what the film is about every time. I think it's very true.
It's even scarily true sometimes. And if your crew loves working on the film, you'll see it in the film. And if everybody's miserable, you'll feel it in the film on screen.
Yes.
Even that psychology, even the gaffer and the grips and everybody's good humor shows in the film. I'm totally convinced that the crew is more important than anybody ever gives them credit for, because they make the
Yes.
mood of it, and you see it in the end. You actually feel it.
That is so true. Well, on TV, that is especially true also, because, of course, if you have a crew that works, well, one thing that I found, especially in TV, but this is, of course, true in film, is that, where the more storytellers you have, a better product. If everybody's trying to tell the story within their departments, and you get on some things and they're not storytellers. They're not. I find on TV shows, there's certain TV shows where people are not storytellers. But one show that I've done quite a bit of, and Southland was a good example of that too. And this other show, Murder in the First, they're all storytellers on the crew, and so they're all in sync together, and they're all committed to story, which is really kind of a beautiful thing. Is that they're all invested in telling the story as well.
Yeah, it's a great communal experience if you really want to tell the same story together. In movies, very
Yes.
often, it's just the director pushing the story through, very often. But I think on television, if you work so intensely, you all have to want to tell the same story in order to get it done. Give me an idea. I never
Yes.
had a chance to ask anybody how many setups you would do in Southland or Sex and the City. Just, I never got the nitty gritty. How many setups would you have to do a day?
Well, Southland was interesting because that was all steady cam. So
Ah,
that was more guerrilla than I ever even
wow.
worked, because it's one guy out there, Jimmy Murrow, who also directed a few of the episodes, and they would just let the streets go because it was cop activity. So they'd go, well, people are always watching cops, so whatever we get on the streets, people looking in the camera, you just go with it.
And it was a lot of stuff in one shot then.
Yes, exactly. So everything was there was a lot of blocking, of course, for the Steadicam, and so that was less setups than what you would do on. Well, I mean, some of the early, it was really tedious because it was very formula, and so they'd want to make sure they had, just the usual, just the meat and potato, the close-ups of this, close-ups of that,
Yeah.
inserts of this, so
You
that
need
there was a
close-ups on
lot.
everybody involved all the time, yeah. But still give
Exactly.
me a number. How many setups would you do a day? I just want to know the number.
God, God, I don't even know.
See,
I don't even know how to answer that, honestly.
so many that you forgot and you didn't count them at the end of the day.
I think I just didn't, Vim.
See, I'm very anal about these things. At the end of
You
the
really
shoot, I
are.
always go to the script girl and say, the continuity girl, and say, how many setups did we do? I really want to know the number. And
Oh,
and uh,
God,
and
yeah.
my own record in my lifetime so far is 53, which we did with Franz Lustig, the DP, on Land of Plenty. I did one day of 53,
Oh.
and I still think that it's compatible with any TV show.
Oh,
53
yeah.
must be pretty
I
much
would say
out there.
for sure. Because I would say it's probably half that, I would think.
It's still
Yeah.
tremendous, and it's still a lot. So,
Yeah.
so storytelling. Let's stick to that issue, because
Yeah.
you were there when we did Paris, Texas, and it was the first time I believed in a story in my life, and maybe that's why the film turned out well, because I had this trust in the story, and I think it was the fact that Sam was involved, and we got the characters right from the beginning, and we really all wanted to know what was going to happen to this guy Travis and this woman Jane and this little boy Hunter. So the story was for once linked to people I really understood, and I really believed in it. You see, all the movies before, they deal with the fact that I didn't believe in the story, and out of a sudden I had one that I really truly wanted to keep following, and I think that was I think that's still for me the magic of Paris, Texas, that the story is so, there's just no doubt that this is a real story, and even now, I mean, how many years later? It's scary, 30 years later or so.
Exactly.
I still think of that little family, and I still think of them as if they continue having a life together.
I know. It's very true that you can see, you don't just see the life of the actors who are all still here, which is amazing in itself, but that you can picture those characters living on. That's great storytelling.
Yeah, at one
Where
point
you
we
see
wanted
that
to
life
we
beyond.
wanted to do a little thing for about an hour with Nastasia and Harry Dean and Hunter, and I
Yes.
actually thought I would set it in a little house in Paris, Texas, because Travis owned that piece of land there, and we were really talking about it with the
Yes.
three actors, and everybody wanted to do it, and especially Nastasia, because she loved her little son so much, Hunter, and she stayed in touch with him over all these years. But
She
for some reason,
has.
we never got it off the ground, because I don't know, maybe sometimes it's also good that you don't look at your characters 30 years later, but I was very much tempted by it, and maybe it's also partly guilt, because I always felt guilty towards that city, Paris, Texas, that it doesn't actually appear in the film, and
Oh yeah.
so I mean I really feel I should do it justice somehow, and that's why we thought maybe we'd do a little sequel and actually shoot it in Paris, Texas, but we never got to do it.
I remember this. Yes. God, that would have been great. That would have been really fun. But I know what you mean about revisiting. There's certain characters that I feel like you don't quite finish with, or you don't want to let them go.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when it doesn't work out, I've tried to do this with a couple of things, where I've tried to do a sequel, or I've tried to do a TV show, or I just think, well, maybe they weren't. Maybe I already told that story. Maybe I need to let them just kind of stay where they stayed, and live in that world where characters go when they live on. Maybe they're not mine
the heaven
anymore.
of characters.
Yes, the heaven of characters.
The paradise of characters. Well, most of our characters are in purgatory,
They
I think
are, aren't
Travis
they?
is in
But
purgatory. He's not in heaven, and he didn't belong in hell. He was too good. But probably Travis is still in purgatory.
And where do you think Jane and Hunter are then?
I think they went to paradise straight there.
Yes.
Anyway, I don't think. Who knows who is going to go where? Where do dogs go, I think dogs also go there. Not only movie dogs.
All dogs.
All dogs go to heaven, I think.
I agree. I agree. I have to believe that.
Yes. And cats do too. I don't know.
And
It's so
cats.
sad
Now,
to
what
see
about
an animal
Alice?
die.
Where did Alice go?
Little Alice. Oh,
Alice is one of my favorite characters in all of movies, as you know, because
Alice is
I
still
adore
kicking,
her.
And do you know that she made one more movie. The little Yella who played in Alice in the Cities, she made one more movie afterwards. And when we shot together, she turned 8, and then she made another movie in her holidays when she was 9. And she decided that was it, because the other movie was a television movie, and she didn't like the experience at all. And so she said, I'm not going to do any more movies because it's not as fun as I thought when I was working with them. So, and then she became a costume designer. And she did that for 10 years, and she had 2 boys. And then in her early 30s, she said, movie making is cool, but it's not really socially relevant as much as I wanted it. And she started with 2 boys to study medicine, and now she is a full-blown doctor. And to do that when you're already a mother and have 2 kids and when you had a whole other life, I thought it was so courageous. She's one of my heroes. Little Alice, who's now a doctor.
I love her so much. That is amazing. What a perfect story for that girl that played that character. Because to me, that's one of the most empowered female characters ever. Yeah.
Little did I know, because she was running the set. Did I tell you?
No, tell me.
because for some reasons I liked her very much, and she was so smart. And eventually she realized the power of the whole thing was with the director when he said cut. So at one point she got me to promise that in the scenes I would do with her, I would let her say cut. So, which of course was a disaster, because sometimes she never said cut because she felt she still had something coming. No, she said she still had something going, and so she didn't say cut. But we stuck to the rule. She always said cut in her scenes, and it gave her a tremendous, it gave her tremendous control of herself and of her scenes. And I mean, she was just a little girl, but she understood. And Rudiger, the man, he was always so scared that he really scolded me that I had given her that power, because he said, well, what if I'm not finished? And I said, well, she's going to know. So she always said cut. And at some point in the film, you can actually hear her say cut. I think I didn't cut it out. And at some point in the film, you see her off camera say cut. Cut, cut, cut.
Oh,
she
my
said, cut, cut, cut.
I gotta hear that.
Yeah, you'll hear it.
Oh, that's a great. That's a great.
It's now restored,
device.
and it looks better than it ever did. We restored it. The negative was completely damaged. The negative was dead. We made 160 prints. Imagine, of a 60 millimeter negative, and the negative was lost. It was really lost, and it took 6 months to restore it, and now the film looks better than it ever did, and the sound is great. And so eventually, maybe when this retrospective is coming around your way, I'd love you to see the restored version of Alice, because it never looked so good.
I'm there. It's going to be at the Cinematheque here in November.
Cool.
So,
and you're also going to see Paris, Texas in a beautiful 4K version. We really worked our asses off for 2 years to restore at least 12 of them. We're going to go into the next half from next year on, but so far we've done 12.
Now, how did you do that? How did this all come about? How did you start to restore the films?
I had to gain control of the films again, and I had lost control of all my films in the early 21st century. There was a bankruptcy, and I lost all my negative. So, and then for 10 years, I just was able to watch them from a distance. I wasn't involved in any of the decisions, any of the distribution. And then the guy who had bought them at the time, he retired, and he knew how much I had suffered from no longer controlling the film. And he said, well, Wim, I know you're so attached to them, so I'm going to sell the whole package again, and I'm going to give you the first right to buy them back. And I didn't have the money to buy 50 movies back. So Donata and I, my wife and I, we had a foundation, and we collected the money, and the foundation then bought all these movies back and now owns my entire work, and it's really beautiful, because I don't own them personally anymore, which is a relief. I never thought I should own them personally, but I can control them with the foundation, and the foundation was in a perfect position to restore them because they could invest more money than a commercial enterprise. You see, like a movie like The Goalie's Anxiety at the Penalty Kick.
Right.
How many people are going to see that? You see, and a commercial enterprise will ask you for the revenues if we restore the movie and if we buy the music rights and all of that.
Exactly.
It's going to cost a fortune. How are we ever going to recuperate that? So as a foundation, we didn't have to think this way. And so we restored all these things and even cleared music rights that I never bought before. I mean, I was
my God.
such a naive little fellow at the time.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing.
You have a lot of music in
amazing.
border radio. Did you actually, or gas, food, and lodging, did you ever actually acquire movie rights at the time? The music rights?
I did. Can you
did?
believe it? Even on border radio, because on border radio, we had put in a Frank Sinatra song, My Kind of Town. It was the opening credits to
And you actually acquired
one of the movies. No, that's when we found out that we had to acquire all the rest of it, was that they said, oh, that'll be $50,000. And that was in...
That was more than your movie cost, right?
Yes, exactly. That was in 1984. So you can imagine what it would be now. But we were like, oh my God, it was the rude awakening to the world of music rights. So we cleared everything, including Bonanza. We lost that after 10 years. Exactly. We lost that after 10 years on border radio, so we had to sadly cut that scene out of the final movie. But
we did something else. We did something else instead of cutting it out, because I had to face the situation that I had to cut out several scenes in The Goalie's Anxiety at the Penalty Kick because we could not afford to buy Elvis Presley. You see, it was
right.
Van Morrison. I could call him and I could talk to him, and he actually gave me the rights to Gloria, and I'm eternally grateful to the man. But Elvis, you can't call anymore, so you just deal with a corporation that has all these rights. So at one point, my music supervisor said, "I can't help you with the Elvis song, Wim." And there's another 3 or 4. It's just 10, 20 seconds in the film. It's costing more than the film initially cost. So we couldn't afford it. And then we did something that I didn't even know it was possible. We only had the mixed track, mono track of that film. Nothing else. No more single tapes, no more dialogue, nothing. We just had a mixed mono track. So how can you take the music out? I thought, well, I have to then cut the scene in order for the film to survive. And then they developed a technology that you can sort of take the music out from under the dialogue if you have a new music that follows the old one exactly millisecond beat by beat. So I had these musicians and they composed the Elvis lookalikes and all these lookalike songs with equipment from the 60s, and they just had to surgically exactly have the millisecond right on the tempo. And then you could, frame by frame, take the music out from under the dialogue and shove in the new one. And I didn't even know that could be done. And we had to do that with 6 tracks. And that's why the film is now alive, because we just were able to substitute old music in an existing mono mix. Can you believe that?
That is unreal. Oh my God, I can't wait to tell Tiffany that. Because she's a music supervisor now and has to deal with this stuff all the time, where people are like, I can't, what am I going to do?
Well, it is possible now. It is possible. It's a little tedious work.
What's the technology?
I can connect you to the guys who did it, and it is, I think, common knowledge now how to do that. But it all lives and dies with the fact that the music that you recreate does have exactly the same tempo.
Right.
Otherwise, it's not working. It has to fit in exactly, in even solos and voice beginnings, and it has to follow the layout of the music that you're taking out, and then you can substitute.
Wow. That is amazing.
And I'm going to send you the vinyl, these new 6 killer tracks. We made a
Yeah.
little vinyl, so I'm going to send that to you.
Oh God, I would love it.
Our
Who
replacement
did the
killers.
music?
What?
Who did that?
It's a
Who did the
it's
tracks?
it's a musician. He does a lot of rockabilly and stuff, 60s stuff.
Uh-huh.
And he had all the machines. He had all the mono tape machines and the mixing equipment that people used to work on in the 60s. And that is also crucial that you have the same that you have
Yes.
the same sound quality.
For sure.
So we then, it took a while. I mean, and we had to find the singers, and we had to, I mean, Elvis Presley is a tall order to recreate, but we made it.
Right. Unbelievable. I couldn't remember if the song Gloria was in Goalie because
Yeah.
what I remember is the actress saying her name's Gloria and then her going Gloria.
Yeah.
It's so genius. I love that. I'll never
Such
forget
obvious
that.
dialogue. But the Gloria
But
was so
it's so
crucial
good.
because there was a lot of dialogue under the Gloria track, and it would have been months and months of work to substitute it. So I wrote a letter to Van Morrison, and God bless his soul, he actually said, "Well, I understand your problem," and I just waived it, believe it or not.
That's amazing. That is just amazing.
The man just turned 70 the other day, Van, 2 days ago.
Oh, I just saw that on people were place on Facebook. Happy birthdays.
Yeah, there you go.
Incredible.
There you go.
Now,
So,
can I ask you, Vim, about working with composers? Because,
yep.
I realize that, I mean, for me, what was amazing when I discovered your very first movies is that nobody had been using, this is always hard for me to explain, but nobody had been using music of the past in the present as part of people's lives. People would use music from the 50s or the 60s by the 70s. They would use pop music like American Graffiti used it, which used it very well, but they would use it to set the time and place. But like Goalie is a good example where here's this song from the 60s with these characters in the 70s playing a record and going, this is part of my life now. Nobody had done that before. I don't know if you realize that, but nobody had done that. So
no, I did not realize because it felt so natural, but it was certainly fun.
It's how we lived, but nobody was doing it. So I always think about the songs that you put, because I know how important records are to you and always have been, and jukeboxes and how we listen to music has always been so important to you, how characters listen to it. But then I always forget until I get struck by the scores on your films that you also worked with composers from the beginning. So
and
how did you?
Sometimes you combine the two. You have both scored music, like on Alice there was score music by Can.
One of my favorite scores ever, by the way.
Yeah, and
I
then
know
of
you
course
told
there were
me
all the songs, and I think that's part of the fun, that score and soundtrack can actually complement each other and sort of throw a light one on the other, and then they have so different functions. And the way I used existing songs, I never used them as score. I never just put them over the shots. I always used them as source, and you see the source. So there is a jukebox, or there is a radio, or there is a record player, or whatever. So it's always justified, or there is a car radio, or whatever. And I never really wanted to use it as score, because score is music that you put over it and you don't know where it's coming from. And I never really wanted to do that with rock and roll. I sort of always insisted that it would have a source in the image and in the life of the people listening to it.
Yeah, I love that. That's very true. I hadn't even thought that that's always the case. But I'm now flashing back on every single, like Kings of the Road. They're in the truck.
Yeah, they had
Yeah,
this
it's
beautiful little machine, this 45
I
record
love
player
that so much. So
that
good,
is where you
so
can shove
good.
in the singles just like you shove in a CD today in a CD player. And
Totally.
it was such a dream machine. Boy, the discovery of that little machine made the entire movie happen. When I found that machine, I knew we can make a movie. Because what else would you do at the time with music? You couldn't put it on the radio, right?
Exactly.
And you
You
didn't
just
have an
have,
iPod.
you were at everyone's
What?
mercy.
Yeah, exactly. You were at the mercy of whatever radio station you were going to tune into. And I always hated to be driving and you have to change radio stations because you lost the signal, or and then they
Yes.
played lousy music, so you try to find another one. And of course now with CDs and everything, and even with
Oh,
cassettes, you
yeah.
can handle that yourself. But Kings of the Road was even before the time of cassette players, you see. So
It's
what do you
so
do?
great.
What do you do? And then we found that machine that was like a portable jukebox.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. I want one of those. I guess we kind of got them now, but
Yeah, we have
because
them
you
now
can just
anyway. Yes,
wirelessly have your Bluetooth play,
yes. We're
but
now
it
living
was
in
great then.
music heaven in relation to at the time.
We are indeed. And you did buy me my first iPod.
I did.
Do you remember that? Yes. We went to lunch and you were like appalled that
I was
you
appalled that you
said,
didn't
you of
have
all
one.
people. Yeah, you
Yes,
of all
yes,
people, you said. So you
yes,
took me
yes.
to the store right after that and bought it for me.
Oh, God bless my soul.
We know you're going to
But
heaven.
it was unbelievable. I figured Allison is the first one to have an iPod at the time. When was that? It's a long. I mean, they're completely out of
It's a
fashion now.
long
But
time.
but at the time, I figured you were going to be the first one, and then you sort of were sort of quite bashful about it. Said, "No, I don't have one."
Yeah, I was. After here, I have been making you mixtapes
I still
and
have
you know,
some
by
of
the
your
way,
mixtapes. I still
oh,
have
you
some of them.
do?
Yeah, I still
Wow.
have
I
them,
think I
and
still have one that you made for Patrick.
oh yeah, you still have
I
that?
took it. I do. Yes, I took it. He left
Wow.
it at my house. I was like, it's mine now.
It's so revealing to listen to these cassettes, these compilations from the time. It's like psychoanalysis.
Yes.
You you listen to these old cassettes, and it's like reading somebody's mind, or it's like
It's
people are an
true.
open book in these playlists at the time. I mean, now everybody plays
It's
in
very
random, so you don't
true.
have that anymore. That same effect that because at the time, what we put so much thinking into these playlists. You did too. I
So
sometimes
much
discovered the
thinking.
most unbelievable reasons why you put that song after that and that. So, and that was the fun
Yes.
of it.
Well, it was a narrative and it
Yeah,
was like an unconscious thing some of the time. Well, it's like telling a story where there's the unconscious part and there's the conscious construction and there's the work you had to do to get the records out and, make sure that they weren't skipping all over the place from, you know, scratches or whatever.
yeah.
And
God,
then do the work and then put the playlist together and go, does this really make sense? Does this work? And you were telling something to somebody when you gave them a mixtape.
exactly. It was like a piece of your heart.
Yes,
It was
totally,
really
totally.
psychology, and it was also a story you were telling to the other person. And it was storytelling. You're
Yes.
totally right. That is a lost art now, because now that everything is random, story is gone.
Well, this is troubling to me. I have found that to be true too, where like um, how do we get how can we be satisfied again? You know, I don't want to have to constantly go back to the past to be satisfied by a movie or by a story or by even by a TV show, I want it to be constructed to be told to me, to tell me something.
So what's your
And
conclusion?
I don't know. I think that we have to still commit to storytelling. I think that we have to, even if it's, well, I remember Kurt Voss saying once, he was talking about Wichita Lineman by
Hmm.
Jim Webb. And he says, that's like the greatest storytelling. He says, if I could do that in less than 3 minutes, if I could make a movie like that, I would just feel like, okay, well, I'm done then. I told that story. That's like a great story to tell in less than 3 minutes. So I feel like no matter um, how short the attention span gets, you can still tell a story within that time frame. You still gotta commit to story
Yeah.
and to a
But
voice
story
to
is
tell
also
it.
so much linked to linear because story needs to be told in a linear way, and most of our music media are not no longer working linearly. So that part of
Right,
storytelling is sort of
right.
has disappeared because story needs beginning and middle and end, and if you're not telling it linear in a linear way anymore, so you lose that feeling of necessity of something following something else necessarily. So, and I agree a lot. Some of the satisfaction we got out of these compilations is difficult to get back to it. Difficult to get back.
It
Digital
really is.
technology dropped the idea of linear, and that is also a certain cultural sadness about that.
Well, I think so too, because yeah, the technology will play things randomly. That's
Yeah.
the problem. I mean, even if you and I correspond, I'm on email, I'm not going to send you a play. I mean, maybe I'll send you a Spotify playlist or something like that, but I'm probably just going to send you one song at a time, or oh, I listened to this, or oh, here's this YouTube video, or
Or
it's
even the
not going to be
letters
the
that you
same.
send me. You remember the letters you sent me? Sometimes you scratched out things, but today we wouldn't scratch it out anymore. We would just
I know.
take it off
I
the email.
know.
But at the time, you scratched off things, and of course, I read everything that was scratched out because that's the most. That's the great part. You
That's the
see, you
best
want to find
part.
out why she scratched it out. So I read, of course,
Totally.
first of all, I read everything you scratched. So and that part is gone. You can't this the scratching we
No.
made it by deleting things, and that is a little bit of a pity that the culture of scratching is gone too.
Yes.
But I don't want to
Even
sound like nostalgic and stuff. I'm sort of happy that we live today, but some of the stuff was interesting and was more linked to storytelling than today. That's totally true.
yes, I agree. And it kind of and there's character in all of that as well. There's character that you can't get from an email. You
Yeah.
don't get the same character as and I can't look up back on it in the same way,
Yeah.
as I can look back on, physical stuff that's written down.
Totally right. I mean,
Yeah.
all the kids today, they take all these photos. They take a whole shitload of photos, and their parents take shitloads of
Yes.
photos. But when these kids are adults, none of these pictures that their parents took of them will still be there. None of them. And
Yes, they won't.
their own photos that they take now, a lot of the kids have these phones, they'll all be gone. Nobody's going to have a picture of their childhood in another
Exactly.
20 years. And
Exactly.
I can still print my own negatives when I was 6 years old. I still have the contact sheets, you see. And I can see all the mistakes I made. And today, these kids, even if they're all over documented in 20 years, they won't find a
Hmm.
bloody picture of theirs unless somebody printed it out.
Not at all. And there's the other part of it, which, I've been dying to talk to you recently about until the end of the world because of that technology that now everyone's talking about. While it's not dreams, it's that kind of, um, the sort of technology. to, bring us into social media and stuff.
Yeah. I think
And
you're
it's
right. The film sort
crazy.
of anticipated the selfie
It
a
did. You were
quarter of a
so
century
you
ago.
were
They sort of
so pathetic and all this stuff.
they're gonna release the film now next year, and it's also playing in the retrospective, and they're only releasing my long version, the director's cut,
Great.
and that finally does a little justice to this most ambitious thing I've ever done. We just screened it here
Well,
at the IC Center, the film, and the audience really loved it, and they stuck around for the 5 hours, and they were all flabbergasted that we actually invented these things, and that none of them existed at the time, like car navigation. Everybody knows that now, but at the
I
time it was
know.
science fiction, and we invented how it would be if somebody would tell you where to go.
Well, those machines look exactly like your movie. When I see this headgear on people, for virtual reality, I'm like, well, that's from Vim's movie exactly. But also the amazing thing that you predicted is our relationship to that.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
can
dependency
see,
rather than a
yeah,
relationship.
dependency and obsession and a kind of soul sickness that happens. And that's where, my granddaughter will stop me. She actually holds her hand out like like she's warding off paparazzi from pictures. Because she'll tell me, put the phone down, woman, to me about taking pictures of her, or just, not being present for her because I'm in the technology of creating her to share with the world, and
Hmm.
she's like, I'm right here,
I'm
let's
right here, don't share
engage.
me. Yeah. I know these
Yeah,
kids have sometimes a very healthy reaction to that. I know.
yeah. But it's
And
amazing how you saw that there was that sense of that in your movie, is that we're going to have tough things to wrestle with in social media, this technology.
well, we imagined it innocently, but sort of accurately, and we certainly got it right as far as the dependency goes.
Yes, yes.
And one of these days you can share your dreams, I'm sure. Right now we can share
Mm-hmm.
selfies and stuff, but I think it is no longer real science fiction that you can actually send a little dream to your pal if you
Yeah,
want.
right?
And one day, maybe your grandchild will live that.
Exactly. Exactly. Maybe that will be the new playlist.
Oh yeah, hey, that's thinking.
I might not be able to send you a mixtape, but I can send you my dream.
Do I want to see it?
Yes, that is the question. It's hard enough to get people to even listen to you say dream last night and they're like, "Oh no."
Yeah, there's going to be people you don't want to get into their dreams, and other people you would love to see that.
Totally.
I would look into yours, I tell you.
I would
Because I
look into
trusted your
yours.
movies, so I can trust your dreams.
There you go. Likewise.
We
Needless
can
to
form a
say.
mutual admiration club, but that's not so interesting. Don't you have anything to say that sort of bashes me? That's more interesting today. I think people like that much more than people admiring stuff. They like stuff being bashed. Come on, come up with something you
Oh,
always
okay.
hated
What can I
about me.
do? What can I say? Well, I just remember I do remember on Paris, Texas saying, I figured in my journal, I was like, well, I figured out today how Vim manipulates all the women on the crew. And I don't even know
Are
what
you
that
gonna are
meant.
you gonna reveal that here on? But tell me, what did I do? I forgot.
I don't know. I think you were just charming.
Oh,
But
that's a very
everyone
old
was
trick.
very, very wanting to please, They were all very wanting to please. So
Well,
I
that's the
think I had
director
never
syndrome.
noticed that before. Yeah, it is. It is. It's always weird for me on the other end. I don't quite get it. I don't know if women directors get it the same as male directors, though.
You would have to know about that. I don't know much about
Yeah, I
how
don't
a
think
woman
so.
director behaves on the set. Are you bitchy or are you very sweet?
Oh, of course, I'm so sweet. I occasionally have a bitchy moment. There's
Oh,
always one time that I have a moment where I've kind of lost it.
yeah, me too. I think I had some shouting fits on Paris, Texas. Every now and then I was so pissed that we didn't get a shot, and I started to shout. And then everybody was frozen and looked at me and said, "What happened?" And felt, "What happened to Wim? He's always so nice."
Yeah. Oh,
I had some
totally.
fits, I think.
Totally. Yeah, I actually remember I remember one. I didn't see it, but it was when, you know what? There was an episode. I think it was there was some I heard some voices. We were in that little town, Alpine or something. And then later
Texas.
that's when the film came back throbbing.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know, it might have been the little explosion on the set. That was always my theory. Was it was the energy on set in that moment.
Well, that was tense at the time. It was about that time that the Teamsters spotted us and imposed themselves on us. So
Oh yeah.
it was such a radical thing that we had to cut like 2 weeks out of the schedule, and I think I got very angry a few times. But then again, we had to live with it, and and they all stayed on the film until the very end, and some actually were very faithful to us and came to Los Angeles with us, and even were on the reshoot and stuff. And actually,
Right.
some of them I got to like. I mean, in the beginning, I thought this was the pest, but in the end, some of these were good guys.
Well, yeah, and that actually, I remember, God, I just remember in El Paso those guys coming and you're so
In black
tall, and they were
limousines.
like
Do you
twice
remember
as tall.
they came
Yes.
onto our lot in two black limousines, and the production manager, Don, he went white and he said, and then eventually he got up and disappeared in one of these black limousines, and half an hour he came back out, and he said, "This is the deal," because
Yeah.
some of our crew was on tourist visa and they knew everything about us, and Claire was as a tourist. And I don't think Robbie had a real working visa, so they knew everything about us, and they said they're going to
Oh,
they blow the whistle on us, except if we employ 12. And then we did that, and he had to cut the deal, and that was a black day in my life. But we survived it, Allison, and we survived our little telephone thing because I think we run out of time here.
have we? Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah, we're gonna do a sequel.
We do. Are you when are you coming to LA next?
I don't know.
I can't
I
wait
hope
to
I
see
get to
your new
travel a little bit
movie.
with the retrospective, but right now I'm probably gonna start shooting another documentary. So I'll see how it works out. And if ever I come down your way, I'll let you know. And if ever you need some of your old records back, give me a holler.
Oh, Vim, what a complete joy. I feel like we were just hanging out. I forgot that we were recording anything. I hope
Yeah,
it
me
makes
too.
sense to
Me
people.
too. And I didn't even see you. I mean, we're just here on the phone. So I wish you a good rest of the day and whatever you do, and all my best, Alison.
Big
Take good care.
kiss.
And the
Love
kids
you.
as well. Give them a hug.
Yes.
Okay.
And Donato for me. Love you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
This is Nick Dawson from Talkhouse Film, and you've been listening to Wim Wenders and Allison Anders on the Talkhouse Film podcast. The episode was engineered and edited by Elia Einhorn. For more filmmakers talking film and TV, visit thetalkhouse.com/film. Subscribe to Talkhouse Film and Talkhouse Music podcasts on iTunes, where you can find all our previous episodes. And while you're there, please rate and review if you can.
Hi, this is Wim Wenders, correctly pronounced Wim Wenders, and you're listening to the Talkhouse Film Podcast, not the Pothouse Film Talk. Oh God, I fucked